All
All
right,
right.
James. Yeah, dude. Good to see
How
you,
are you,
man.
man?
How is it in your world?
We're good. Good, good. We're here, what, November 8th, the year of our Lord 2024. And things are good. It seems like we always connect around these times. Last time, we connected right, I think January 7th, 2021 was one of those times, right?
The seventh. Yeah, interesting.
And we actually remember we called out kind of what was happening there the day after it happened. We don't have to get the details, so it's interesting. So yeah, everything's good. I'm happy to talk with you again, and I hope you're well.
I'm glad that we have been talking long enough that we can speak in seasonal terms,
Hmm.
or in phases, because
Yeah,
now, once you get to increments of years, especially around here, 4 years,
yeah,
um, it just makes the dynamic that much richer.
yeah, man.
So catch me up, man. You're over on the East Coast, reporting from Florida. If you wouldn't mind, maybe just give us an update. There's been a series of hurricanes and disasters. What's it been like from your perspective?
Yeah, it's been surreal to be honest with you. I've lived in Florida my whole life, 42 years now, and I never had to put shutters up, right? My entire life. First time I did it because of the house that we bought came with shutters was 2018 when we had, or 17 when we had Irma. And Irma was
Yeah.
a big bad storm, and it was coming towards us. It looked like it was going to be our storm. So there's this idea of our storm in the Tampa area because there hasn't been a direct hit since
Hmm.
1902, something like that. So
Wow.
like we're due, but we
Yeah.
always keep getting like they'll come to us and they'll swerve. And there's a contingent of people that say these hurricanes swerve because we're on Indian burial grounds and it's the Indians that are protecting us,
Hmm.
And I'm like, so you think the Indians where we took their land and pillaged their people are protecting us from storms now? So I don't know if that's the case, but there's also contingent. We have a slew of Greek Orthodox and Orthodox churches in the area, so people say it's that's the reason. So for whatever reason, we've been spared. And this year we got tagged with a terrible storm that completely missed us. It was Hurricane Helene that went up the coast about 100 miles off our coast, caused devastating storm surge. I'm talking devastating storm surge in the Tarpon Springs area where, we were hanging out before, and then the Clearwater area.
Hmm.
And then 3 weeks later, we had this big Category 5 storm coming right at us, and we actually got a semi-direct hit, and it was a very intense experience. And a lot of people lost a lot of things, and it was just disorienting. We
Hmm.
almost were going to cancel our football season. But we kind of rallied. We were blessed to be in a certain area. We didn't get too much impact. I did have some shingles fall from the roof, and all of a sudden had some water flowing on the ceiling in my garage. So we're not
Hmm.
unscathed. But so it's been intense, man. It's been
Yeah.
intense, and I'm glad that this season is on its way out.
I remember you sharing some of the videos, like drone footage and news clips, and it was like, oh, this is, 10 miles away from me, 5 miles away from me. It's like, whoa,
Yeah,
man.
I
Put that
had
in
so we're
perspective. It's crazy.
I work with about 40 families in the community here. And we had about 5 or 6 families and caregivers that lost everything, lost their homes, lost their cars. I've never seen anything like it.
Hmm.
And we're doing what we can to rally to help, but it kind of puts a lot of things in perspective when things like this happen. So it's been something else, but blessed to make it through it. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the response been like? Has there been, volunteer or community efforts going over there, help people patch up shingles, things like that?
Yeah, definitely think when things like this happen, it's the best part about it is it brings community members together. It did in our
Hmm.
neighborhood back in 2017, and again, it happened this year. A lot of our old neighbors that disconnected from COVID, that situation actually reconnected again, and we all helped each other out, putting our shutters up, taking the
Hmm.
shutters down, helping with shingle repairs. Like it was a phenomenal thing. A lot of times it takes something like this to bring people together, and that's kind of the silver lining from these types of events for sure.
Yeah, it is interesting how, you look at that chaos and how it can bring you closer to order, or harmony.
Hmm.
Um,
Definitely.
Similarly, if it's those moments where you're closest to death,
Yeah.
that life becomes so much more apparent, real.
Yeah. No, I completely agree, and I think that's a good segue into what's recently happened with the election here that we're obviously still metabolizing. Because it's this weird feeling of elation and relief that I feel. And then I see my neighbors and other people that are terrified and are like really having a tough go about it. So it's hard to work through that because, I really believe and believed, whether I'm right or wrong, that there was something uh, taking over our systems, like in a very terrible totalitarian way. And I don't know if it's just the sources information that I peruse or whatnot, but I really felt that was actually happening for real and was not looking good. And then I think something has changed with this recent election. So I feel elation and joy because I really felt, and I felt that others that don't look in certain ways weren't aware that this was happening, but others that look in this way is like, oh my God, this is very clear with the medical tyranny that we saw, all these measures, the lack of reckoning. So when this new sea change has heard, whether it's warranted or not, I feel a lot of joy and elation. So it's very similar to that idea. We were going through a very like an emergency, and we've made it out of it, right? Just like the hurricane came, we're kind of looking forward now. I feel like the same things happened here. God willing, it's warranted, and it's not some, a calm before another storm or something. I don't know. What are
Mm,
your thoughts?
I think that is an amazing way of tying that analogy. It does. It
Hmm.
feels like the storm is settling. The storm is settling, and you kind of see the wreckage, but you also see the areas where we need to get to work.
Yeah.
If I would just like kind of read the temperature of maybe myself and then my immediate area,
Uh-huh.
man, I feel the future is bright. I feel like so much relief, and I am thinking of my kids. Like, man, I just feel like it's game on.
Yeah.
Like, it has not just an immediate like one for one effect of like political, policies or whatever, but it's spreading to other areas where I'm just looking at this area that's kind of been like at a standstill or maybe seeming like a dead end in life. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I don't see it as it's dark, dreary thing anymore. It's like we can tackle that. We can like so it has this momentum is building, even within my life and family of, like let's strategize. Let's think big.
Hmm.
We can envision. And I feel like we have the support, the broader societal support of our nation to make that happen. Like I feel like we can breathe and we can dream again.
Yeah. And we feel like we're going to participate in something. And I had this, about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I had this kind of like my prediction was, okay, it seems like the DNC shift away from kind of sort of policy, looking at policies towards, fascism and Nazism. I'm like, oh, they see the writing on the wall that Trump's going to win. This is a post-Trump win pre-inauguration strategy to ensure he doesn't take office. I really
Mm,
thought that, and I predicted he was going to win because you could see outside of the polls, which just said 50-50, it's a knife's edge. Every other physical piece of evidence that I saw, people at work, we all left early to go vote, right? And everybody was excited to vote for a certain candidate. Half of those people hated this candidate 2 years ago, wouldn't even mention his name. They voted for him, right?
mm,
And I would see people with flags on the corner of the street and, like Trump flags or whatnot, right? And, sometimes people would honk. There would be the whole row of cars, just a steady stream of honking. I'm like, huh, that's interesting. And then you saw what happened on the podcast. You saw Joe Rogan come out.
mm.
And then, for God's sake, I mean, Elon Musk getting involved, and then RFK joining that campaign,
Yeah.
with JD Vance becoming I followed JD for a while before he was in politics. For that to happen, I'm like, this is the craziest thing. This is like,
You've
I
been
couldn't
tracking
even,
JD for
yeah, I
years?
have for a
Oh,
while.
interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I caught his first, one of his first couple podcasts in 2020 with, he had talked to Eric Weinstein, and he's just
Oh,
a very
okay.
interesting guy, comes from kind of the Peter Thiel. And, there's a lot of people that are wary of him for certain reasons, that he's an integralist, that he's, but regardless, I couldn't map out a better case scenario than happened in this campaign. And I never voted for Trump. In 2016 and 2020, I never, I would find myself defending him, even though I didn't support him almost all the time,
Hmm.
because it was crazy what was happening. But this was the first time, and I have a political science background, where I actually, in an affirmative way, could genuinely support a campaign, where I'm like, and it kind of felt weird. I'm like, whoa, have I bought the Kool-Aid or something? What's going on here? These are weird feelings, where you can support someone, but you don't really feel it. It's another thing to be like, oh, it'll be way better if this contingent of human beings takes power for a certain period of time.
Hmm.
And I really felt that, and it looks like that's happened. And I guess the point is, I don't know that because of the way the election turned out, that this prediction that I have of a post-Trump win pre-inauguration strategy that like they did before Russiagate and all this stuff, I don't know that that's possible anymore.
Hmm.
So unless it could be some kind of and you saw the capitulation of Biden and of Kamala saying, "Hey, we're transferring power. This is great." Not this is great, but congratulations, Trump. I'm like, the only thing in the back of my mind is if there's some kind of terrible something or other that happens, whether it's some kind of I don't know, nuclear something like that happens in this immediate next few months. But I don't see that happening. But that's
Hmm.
another thing. But so and then here are all of these great things happening with like I'm very paying a lot of attention to who the cabinet's going to be, like
Yeah.
Trump's cabinet. Like keep like the Marco Rubios, who's our senator here, keep Pompeo, those people away, keep them away. Like and that
Mm.
they started slating Thomas Massey for Department of Agriculture, right? Which is just a great pick. And then there's this regenerative farmer that my friend David Garnowski has talked with a few times, and he's actually been tapped to
Oh, is it
join that
Salatin?
department. Yeah, you know
Dude,
him?
I saw that today. That's huge.
He's getting involved, and it's like, holy cow! Like all of these white
Oh,
pills are just like coming left and right. That there's still those old cynical, like oh, like I got to be careful here because don't get too excited. Don't get too excited.
yeah.
So I don't know what to make of it. What is your take?
So before I give my take, let me just give like a little message for. So if you're tuning in and you didn't vote for Trump, like James and I are just going to stick to prior Lambernier like descriptive like facts of perspective of what we're seeing, what we're reading, and maybe provide some like higher up overall analysis of where the wind's blowing. Um, this is how I'm reading it. This is okay. Let me back up a few steps and we'll get there. So
Yeah.
what I'm seeing is like you see Joe Salatin, you see people like RFK. Like, dude, if you just look at what he's saying. Like it is, these are things like farmers and like food health, nutritional health, overall well-being, or at the entrepreneurial level, tons of entrepreneurs, alternative media like Rogan, and
Mhm.
you see that people are going to be in position not to leverage to like get some type of monetary gain or to power up somehow. Like, dude, I think that time's done. I think it's done, man. Maybe not all the way, but you could just feel it, man. Like that we're at this watershed moment where we have people that genuinely care about more than themselves, more
Mhm.
than greed, more than monetary gain. And they're in positions because they care. We have people there that care about regenerative farming, about creating whole systems, right? Food forest, nutrient dense foods. Like the way I feel about it is it's about freaking time. Like I got after so many years of research for myself, for my family, looking into things that matter, like investing so much time and narrowing down what is my values, what do I think is the best course for my family, and therefore the world that I want them to grow up in. These like this is the first time in my life that I'm actually excited at the potential of these people that I've looked up to being in positions to carry that out at a national scale. These people have been marginalized. Like Joe Salatin, we're talking about like underground movements that are now going to be in cabinet positions. And I think this is where it's leading. The other piece is my grandpa. So my grandpa's passed on. He was a World War II vet. People have listened to previous podcasts know when I talk about my grandpa, I speak very highly of him. He was like he was like my Billy Graham, just an absolute stalwart, like dude, the person he was in private, the person he was in public was this steadfast, virtuous man. He is emblematic of the golden generation, that post World War II generation. The way he talked about his generation, dude, I would spend hours just at his feet, sitting next to him on the sofa in the recliner, and just like, tell me more, Grandpa. I
Mhm.
want to hear about this time when people cared about and they bought in to the vision of our nation, not like a little local niche or a clique or movement or whatever, but like the whole nation was bought into a vision at the practical level. Like we were building something, we got to work, and it seemed like everything was integrated into this. Maybe not everything, but like the way he talks about it was like it was infectious in the best of ways. And today, this morning, I was reflecting on that, and it's like, this might be the first time in my lifetime that I might be feeling what my grandpa felt 70 years ago. This might be the time when we get back to, we're talking about, Robert Kennedy, but when John F. Kennedy said, think not about what your country can do for you, but about what you can do for your country. That's what I'm seeing, James. I'm seeing people that are like willing to volunteer, that are willing to like, dude, just finally someone came up with a strategy for winning, and not just like military victory, but I mean like winning in nutritional food, winning in and
Mhm.
having a good education system that creates wholesome people and citizens.
Mhm.
Like you just go through all these categories. You're like, yes, finally, we have a strategy, a vision. I want to buy into it. Show me how I can help. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and it's going to be interesting to look back on this conversation a year or two, 3 years from now. But it gives me some hope because we look at our previous conversations, 2020, 21, 22, we were kind of right on, in terms of what we were feeling. And instead of, having conversations and podcast episodes, outlining, the roosters crow, the roosters say there's an emergency, right? And pointing to the emergency. Now the roosters crowing for like hope, right? And I
Mhm.
think we're entering the era of the
Dawn of a
podcast,
new day.
the era of a podcast as such, because we saw the sea change. And I posted on X how, the medium is the message, like, and
Yeah.
the new, cohort of folks that are hopefully fighting for the good now got that right. So, and they use those airwaves, and tapped into a large audience by having large, long 3 hour conversations with no commercials, no even bathroom breaks.
Yeah,
You
dude,
can't
straight
hide
up.
talking for 3 hours. You can hide 20 minutes, maybe an hour you can hide, but you can't hide talking 3 hours. And people
Hmm.
got to see that. I think that's only going to continue. And I think so. Pause a second and to what our brothers and sisters that feel differently are being told and feel now is that we're seeing the advent of fascism, right? And
Mm.
and I'm on this group thread text with family, cousins and friends and whatnot, and it gets kind of pretty vitriolic, and I kind of participate in that sometimes and kind of feel bad, but it is what it is, and they say, this is fascism, and it's like, I've studied fascism, my entire life, like it means something, you know,
Mm.
but to get to the root of it, like the one side thinks that the other perspective, like the left thinks that the right policies are fascist, right? Because they're different than the left's, right?
Hmm.
But the fascism, like let's break down that word, is the root word is fascia. You know what fascia is, right?
Oh yeah.
It's the binding tissue that allows your body to constitute,
Uh-huh.
constitute itself.
Yeah,
Without
it
it,
holds all of our
your
systems
organs,
and muscles
yeah,
together
your organs
like a
would just
web.
fly apart. You couldn't have an identity without the fascia there, right? So you
Wow.
need some sort of binding mechanism, some sort of, a message of unity, something like that, at the national level in order to hold the people together, right? What happens when this becomes too constricting, too tight, too stultified? You have fascism, right? But we have to discern those two things. So when we talk about having pride in your nation and your people, right? It's okay to have that, and it's okay, and it's okay to be mindful of what that could lead to, and you have to kind of walk that tight balance there. So, um, I think what we're seeing a kind of resurgence and a response to this international globalist movement, right?
Mm,
To more kind of a national, moving back to the national identity, which again, this was very scary for people that we're still mindful of what happened in the 20th century with national movements, right? Um,
yeah.
and to kind of to add to that a bit, like the global structure is not going to go away. We don't want it to go away. We just want it to be healthy. There's no way that that goes away and we all just go to our own nations and just live life like that. That's gone. That we're always going to have this global function that's necessary.
Hmm.
And just like we tell our brothers and sisters on the left that are calling, this new movement fascist, we need to be careful about just denigrating completely the globalist movement, which has become completely corrupt and needs to go away, right? But
Hmm.
that's a necessary piece too. So we're going to have to contend with what globalism means in this new way of hopefully going forward.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about fascia.
Yeah.
My dad's a doctor, he's a chiropractor, and that's a particular study for him. So he's
hmm
telling me it's like, so it holds us together, man. It's the fascia. So a lot of the work that he does is addressing that. Um,
When I used to do a lot of energy work, qigong, and all of the movements that we do, right, are stretching the fascia, almost
uh-huh.
all of them. And what that does, it creates an electrical charge and it moves, blood and lymph fluid around the body, right? And it uses the fascia as kind of the transportation mechanism to move the energy around to keep your body healthy. And that's kind of how you stay healthy. So it's
Mm,
about it's about like, when you're saying your dad is a chiropractor, that's an important function is to keep the body processes moving in your body, right? Moving your body, doing exercising, but doing these stretching movements that actually release tensions and release energy and release pathogens actually and keep the body healthy. We can look at that. It'd be fun to look at that at the national level. What are these systems of transportation of energy that we need to keep healthy and functioning? To
mhm,
me, it goes right back to the food that we eat, right? The water that we drink, the company that we keep, the roads that we drive on, all of these things. This is our fascia at the physical level, and then we have our fascia at the ideal level, the political level. But it could turn into pathology quickly, right? So we
mhm,
got to continuously focus on the positive aspects of binding us ourselves together, and that's kind of what you know, what it feels like's happening, 3 days out of this election.
mhm.
And a kind of
Yeah.
final point on this string, you sent me a text. What do you want to talk about? Peugeot, his recent talk, Matthieu, and Renewal or the election. I'm like, man, those things seem very combined at this point. We feel a sense of renewal now, right? Don't you feel it? Like a
Oh
sense
yeah.
of waking up, a sense of possibility and positivity, a sense of purpose, a sense of dawning of something new, right? And what do you do when it seems like we woke up from a deep sleep? And the question before was, what is the sleep? What's gonna, what's the sleep gonna lead to? Disintegration or renewal? Because that's the possibility of those kind of the two possibilities of sleep and
Mm.
death, which are kind of related. And talking, I watched a little bit of Matthew's podcast episode before we got on here, and he was talking about how Jesus is the key, but we forgot what the lock was,
Oh
right?
yeah.
What's the lock?
Hmm.
And he says the lock is the grail. The lock is sleep. The lock is rest. The lock is renewal. The lock is the stone rejected by the builders. The lock is the stone Moses hit with his staff. The lock is Abel. So he really, in a beautiful symbolic way, just kind of articulated what this riddle of the lock is. And it's
Hmm.
very complex and complicated. So we know we have the key, which is Christ. What we need to discern the lock. And that's
Mm.
that's as far as I got with that. Like, it's
I
because
think that was super timely. I'm
yeah,
glad you brought that up
yeah.
because the Dan Shervin second interview came out a few months ago, and I think it's right now is the time to revisit it
hmm
because if you saw Matthieu, so if people don't know Matthieu Pageau, he's kind of like the unofficial prophet of this corner of the internet. Um, maybe expanding spaces, we'll see. But so he brought up, he's like, so we basically clicked the refresh button and we're back in 2016 again. And I was thinking about it. I'm like, yes. So if just look at a few of the points. I mean, maybe someone else can add some if you think of more, add it to the comments or something. And 2016, we had a, a female uh, running for president, and the people voted Trump. Trump defeated the female person running for president. That's what happened this time. Surprising victory. Shock. Another point, we had a blockbuster sex scandal. He even mentioned this, except instead of Epstein, we got P. Diddy going on right now.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and you get this, you start going down the list, and it's like, oh my gosh, did we just cycle back? And it's like we're replaying the script, but it feels different. It feels different
Hmm.
this time. It really does. So let me bounce it off you. What do you think?
Yeah, I never thought of it like that, but that makes a lot of sense. And it does feel different because look at the results, you look at the propaganda and the information that was coming through us through our traditional media channels of racism, sexism, misogyny, and all this stuff. Again, just repeating again, and it's not actual; it's virtue signaling. Like people, like they're not actually care about people that experience racism. It's just this weird thing, and it didn't work. And you saw that kind of bad joke that was made at the Madison Square Garden rally about that Tony Hinchcliffe, the comedian, the insult comedian, made a bad joke about well, it was an insult joke, and they said, oh, this is it, this is going to cause the Puerto Ricans to vote a certain way. But the unity movement, let's call it, won a large swath, a record level swath of Hispanics, of blacks, of both Jews and Muslims, like across the board. He overperformed relative to 2020 in every county in the country, in every state, and won a large contingent of these people. So people aren't buying that anymore. And
Mhm.
that's the hopeful piece. Where in 2016 it was different. It wasn't like that. So with the constant barrage of racism, sexism, bigotry, fascism, the constant barrage for the last decade now, right? The fever seems to have broke, right? And it seems the
Mm,
cognitive dissonance is breaking.
yeah.
And it hasn't, we're in the process right now. It's just starting to break. I see it as a lot more people have come over and kind of can see what's happening. So it's interesting. And
Yeah, the fever's broke. Oh,
yeah,
speaking of broke, we got a break in here.
yeah, all good, good.
Yeah, look at this.
Oh, hey, hi,
All
sweetie.
right.
Hi.
Yeah.
Well, hello. Hi. Oh,
Yeah.
so
So
cute.
so where we're at reminds me of, say, like narratively, we've climbed this mountain. I know. Yeah. You can take your pick.
You're so cute. Man, you're blessed, man. Blessed.
I know. In all of this, that's where it's at, man. It really is.
Hmm.
So if we were to look at this narratively, it feels like in the beginning of the story, we climb that mountain, and then the adversity comes, the challenges come, and then it feels like we're at the mountain again, but having gone through all of that, the challenges, the adversities. I mean, just think of all the stuff we've gone through in the last 4 years. Like, and it's like, yeah, we're climbing a similar mountain. Yeah, we're seeing this refresh button. We're seeing very similar patterns. It's kind of crazy once you really start thinking about it, but it's different. And yes, I feel like in a way I'm grateful for the last 4 years, because if I'm describing like me, my family, my immediate people, if I'm reading that as a thermostat, if I'm reading the room correctly, I think the decisions that the leaders made the last 4 years went too far. They pushed people beyond their breaking point. People that weren't already past the breaking point, they are now. And I think the critical moment for most was when they started affecting their kids.
Hmm.
The negative impact to the kids, the whole like trans craziness about what they're doing, how they're pushing that. It's almost like they they let their cards go too far. Like they, having gone past that point, people reach that breaking point is like, this is too far. We are not we can't go this direction. And it triggered that protective thing, especially the dads. I'm sure I'm not
Mhm.
the only one that felt that. Whereas like, I can take a lot. I take a lot when I go to work, like I go to work and I freaking love it. I go and there's a whole bunch of different people with different ideas. Most of them are not like mine. And
Mhm.
you know what? We get out there and we're a nonprofit. We do great things in the community,
Mhm.
you know, but it's when it started affecting my kids and their future. I think similar to Elon Musk. I think that was a watershed moment. And it was symbolic of not just individually Elon Musk's situation with all of the uh, I forget how he put it, but how he lost his child to the woke mind virus.
Yeah.
I think that was happening to not just him, but many people. But him being this symbolic figure was representative of what so many other parents and kids and families were going through. If other people that didn't vote for Trump are confused of like what happened, I think we could pinpoint a few things. That would be the one I would start with.
Yeah.
And now, if we're turning the page, I feel like the future is bright for my kids. Like I'm excited about what they can step into. I mean, even not to bring up another topic, but even with education, I don't know if dude, it's just like, how do you keep up with it, dude? Like Trump is on fire. He's in fifth gear, pedal to the metal. He's not even in office yet, but he's making calls and making things happen. In education, we homeschool. Yeah, think about this. So I go to the ballot box and there's all the things happening nationally, but locally, the people in my county voted for a bond measure. And keep in mind, this is a small town. We're talking about a high school that has maybe 1,000 people total. We voted for a bond measure that was $50 million for repair. So that's basically ringing up the credit card,
Mhm.
and we're going to be paying that. I already have, is it four? No, five. Whenever I get my taxes, I just looked at this the other day. Five line items that they're taking out of my taxpayer money, right? Out of my income is for either the high school, the unified school district, or for a local community college. So I'm already paying extra money. And now we just voted, and of course they make it like, how do you say no to it? It's like, oh, we need to
Mhm.
redo all of the leaking roofs and the ceilings of the classrooms, and this is for healthy environments for our kids. But here's the thing: I am now paying more money to a school I will never send my kids to,
Yeah.
right? We already pay over $10,000 per student tuition every year to a school
Man.
I will never send my kids to. So I'm paying twice, right? Where's my kickback? Where's Fiedler Academy? Where's my bond measure where you give me extra cash to improve my school classroom conditions in my home, And
Yeah.
so just even, and I mean, I get it. I could choose to go to a voucher state or, school choice area, but I feel so like I do. This is unfathomable that it's even possible that we could go towards having like Trump brought up tax breaks for
Mhm.
homeschoolers or schools that aren't in the public system or the unified school districts.
Yeah.
Dude, that's such a game changer. I feel so hopeful for my kids. I feel hopeful of like, oh my gosh, like think of like how much more we can invest into our kids and our collective of homeschoolers. That just brings me so much hope. It's like it's helping, like my country is helping me in the most effective way possible if they move forward and make that happen.
I saw that proposal and of the homeschool proposal put forth. It was been floated around, and it was interesting. It said, there people that homeschool are going to get the same tax credits that people that send their, the same tax
Yeah,
breaks. And then also all of those kids that are homeschooled, there's going to be a mandate to allow them to participate in all of the sports and all of the activities that all of the other kids that go to high school
yeah.
participate in.
That was
Beautiful thing.
denied me when I was growing up.
Yeah,
Wanted to
that's
play on the
a wonderful
basketball
policy.
team, soccer
Yeah.
team, cross country, and they said no.
So I mean, it makes sense. Like, who would be against that? It's like so a lot of good positive stuff. And to your point before about what kind of was the inflection point here. I was talking to a buddy a couple nights ago, and at football practice, I'm like, before when there was a change in presidency, unless you were a political junkie, what wasn't a lot of political junkies. Most people would be like, okay, I'm generally Republican, I'm generally Democrat, but whatever happens doesn't really affect my life that much. My material existence, it really doesn't. But something changed in 2020 with the pandemic and the response and the measures and the mandates. And this kind of nebulous thing of political sea change and policies being discussed and whatnot became very real in people's lives when they were locked down in their houses, when they were slapping masks on their kids to send them to school, and then they were forced, by the administration to take an experimental medicine and forced to put that inside their bodies and hundreds of thousands of businesses closed. Like, so that is the political sphere that usually doesn't affect our lives directly, kind of just imploded and exploded in our lives. And I think that woke a lot of people up. And it's almost like COVID-19, I mean, was a terrible thing, but it's almost a double-edged sword because I think it showed the cards that were being played, that were playing
Mhm.
close to the vest that were showed, like you just saw earlier.
Yep, they
And I
revealed
think
their
this
hand.
this election is a direct response to what we saw in 2020 through 2023.
Mm,
That's what this election is about. I'm sure of it,
yeah.
pretty much. That, and then, all of these other just crazy stuff like, remember defund the police?
Oh, yeah.
Like what are you talking about? Like defund the police. Like there's so many you can pinpoint many, these surgeries
Yeah.
for kids that are going through tough situations that
Hmm.
sterilizes them and whatnot. Oh, it's happening. It's not happening. Oh, it's only happening a little bit. There's just a study that just came out, at least in the last 3 years, at least 14,000 minors have had these top and bottom surgeries. 14,000. That's just their insurance,
Mm.
right? Not paying
Jeez,
privately.
Louise.
So it's
Yeah.
like, holy cow. And it's such a terrible thing. And I try to get in the mind of someone that looks at that and says, that's a good thing, or usually says, oh, these people are struggling, how do you know that's a bad thing? It's like, well, I'm with you if it's the case that all of these people are in this rare condition where this helps them, but that's not the outcome that we're seeing here. So we're actually sterilizing and mutilating minors for terrible reasons. It's a very, very bad thing. So like all of these crazy things that were stacked on top of each other, I think just kind of broke through the cognitive dissonance in a lot of people.
Mm.
And you see this, all of the people around Trump are former Democrats. All of them. Tulsi Gabbard, Elon
Mm.
Musk, Joe Rogan, RFK. He's a
Wow.
stalwart of the historic Democrats. So that's another thing that can help break the cognitive dissonance. These aren't,
Yeah.
Trump came through and he decapitated the Republican Party. And
Hmm.
growing up as a political kind of junkie, the bane of my existence, politically speaking, was neocons, like the neocon forever wars and crony capitalism and that type of thing. So I was
Hmm.
a Democrat before because it seemed to be an option, a less corrupt option for working class people.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is crazy, but at least we have this to fall back on. And then when the Democrats became, like the neocons wear the Democrats as a skin suit now. Like they've become the party of the
Mm.
neocons in a sense. So a
And
lot
it
of my
feels like
brothers and
the
sisters,
Republican Party has stripped
it's gone.
whatever suit they had before. Like people uh, that are asking like, oh, do you just feel like you're a Republican, you win? I was like, funny, I've never really considered myself a Republican,
Mm-mm.
but
No.
I do have values and I have principles and I support people that align with that.
Yeah.
I don't care what their background is. Like that is fascinating to think about that so many former Democrats are now a part of what's happening. I don't even, we'll come up with a better name for it, I'm sure, in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
But certainly it's not the Republican of old. Really, that's just kind of a placeholder name at this point. At least that's how I feel.
I completely agree in the whole this realignment that's happened, left and right is not appropriate anymore. Like the left is now the neocon internationalists, or the right is the kind of America first,
Yeah.
Maha movement, make America healthy again. And like it seems so daunting. Like, where do you start to try to fix things? We
Mm,
have the highest expenditure in terms of healthcare, and we're, I
mm,
think, in the 70th place globally in terms of results. Where do you start? Like in terms of the levels of obesity, the levels of chronic disease that RFK points out, finally,
yeah.
it's daunting. It's daunting. So you never think that you can actually get a hold of this thing, but something is happening. The first policy that is looking to be enacted under this new administration is to remove fluoride from the water, right?
Yeah.
Like, really? Holy cow. That's getting on normie consciousness now. Before, there would be kind of
Yeah.
certain niches that would be interested in that. But there's actual data where you can see the effects that fluoride, massive uses of fluoride have on IQ, right? And you actually saw RFK on kind of standard media saying that all of these things that fluoride does, these negative things, he actually mentioned calcifies the pineal gland. And he says the pineal gland is the seat of our spiritual feelings. So our
Mm,
ability to feel spiritual connection with people and
yeah.
God, that's been calcified. He actually said that in a normal interview. I'm looking around, I'm like, what? So there's all of these white pills just
Who would
coming.
ever think that we
Yeah.
would see the day?
Yeah. I,
Ah,
And
truly.
like, is he really going? Are we really going to overhaul the FDA, the CDC, the FBI, the CIA,
Oh gosh.
the Homeland Security? Are we really going to get rid of our, intertwined relationship with all these NGOs, global NGOs that are just deleterious? Like, are we really going to do all these things? I guess keep your popcorn out,
Yeah,
you
let's
know?
see how much can be done within 4 years.
Yeah.
I don't know. 4 years doesn't seem like that long of a time anymore.
No. Yeah.
Uh,
So,
but shoot, if the last 2 days are any indication, it just might be done, James.
yeah.
Crazy how much he was able to get done.
I guess we'll
Um,
bookmark this right here and we'll come back to it and kind of see where we're at.
yeah.
But
So,
I'm hopeful.
James, I want to bring up, we haven't talked about media yet.
Hmm.
So, just simple question, like when all of this, elections and viewing results and all of that, like what did you pick up? Were you watching ABC News? Were you watching Fox News? Or were you looking and catching how were you tuning in to the election?
Yes, it's a good question. I was flipping from both new media and traditional media. So I was mostly
Interesting.
watching podcasts. I was watching the All In podcast. I was watching the PBD podcast, the Tucker Carlson podcast. I was flipping through those and then I would flip back to CNN and MSNBC, and I would and it was interesting to see that the new media called the election like 10:30, so like maybe before 10:30. They all were like, all these channels said, "Hey, we see the data, it's done," right? I could not go to sleep until I saw, again, until I saw CNN or one of these old media channels call the election. Because what
Hmm.
happened in 2020, I went to bed and woke up and it was totally different. So my
Right.
body would not let me go to sleep. I was up 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, and then I fell asleep. I went to sleep and I woke up and I saw the clean sweep there. But I kept flipping through different media channels and I kind of witnessed the death rattle of old media during that time. It's over. It's not coming back at all. There's no reorganizing, restructuring it. It's all moving towards this new media. And again, and that's another white pill for me. Just that night, the white pill started coming.
Mm,
The white pill.
describe the white peel. Go for it.
So the Matrix. You have the take the red pill and the blue pill. You remember the movie?
Oh yeah.
So if you take the blue
I just
pill,
watched the recent one, by the way. Finally.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you take the blue pill, you go back to your matrix reality, where you're living in kind of the world, right? The old world, the matrix world, the controlled world. You take the red
Mhm.
pill, things aren't very. You will wake up in the new world, but you're not comfortable. It's uncomfortable because you see what's happening with the machines taking over in the movie and how people are plugged in and used as energy sources, and the people that are plugged in, used as energy source, are blue pilled and they're participating in this simulation of reality. People that take the red pill wake up into the real world, but it's not as comfortable because you have to deal with
Yeah.
reality. Then what happens after you take the red pill? You either can take the black pill, where you see how the world really is, and the black pill is you have no hope and you despair, right? Or you can take the white pill, right, where you see how reality is and you're encouraged because you're actually living in the real world now, and you do the work. You start doing the work necessary to build the new future, the new world,
Ah,
right? So the white pill is the antithesis of the black pill in a sense.
okay. So it's like
Yeah.
without the escapism.
Yeah. So it's about like, so you woke up and you see reality. What are you going to do with that information now? Are you going to try to go back to sleep and get blue pilled? Are you gonna see the difficult road ahead, right, and get black pilled, or are you gonna find hope
Hmm.
and be white pilled? So that's what I mean when I keep seeing all
Yeah.
these white pills coming. But
Or you could just listen to the band Dirt Poor Robins and get ultraviolet pilled too. So
that's
it's an
it.
option.
Yep. That's kind of like the clear pill too, like the
Yeah.
ultraviolet pills, like the Christ pill, which is the ultimate,
Oh,
At the
yeah.
bottom of every
Interesting.
rabbit hole is Jesus Christ. I forgot who said that. I think it was David Patrick Henry. You know that guy? I
Uh-huh.
think he coined that. So at the bottom of every conspiracy theory, you kind of get to when you get to the truth of things, you realize the truth, capital truth. I think that's
Yeah.
the kind of the idea there. But
Yeah, so you were tuning into different streams
mhm,
and okay, so you mentioned yeah, I did similar things. I kind of surfed around. Um I ended up settling on the Patrick Bet David or PBD podcast. What fascinated me was that they showed the list of top streams on YouTube.
yeah,
Did you see the list?
he was number one.
He was number one, hundreds of thousands of views at one time. But then there was kind of an interesting mixture. Whereas the people you mentioned, you saw like Tucker, you saw Kirk Cameron's, not Kirk Cameron. Um, yeah, so you see these mixtures of independent media. I think Tim Pool was in there too. And then you saw kind of like interspersed was, Fox, ABC, and then maybe down here you saw some MSNBC. And it was not like, whoa, here's the top 10 and these are the old guards. It was like it was all
Yeah,
mixed up, and the top was independent media.
yeah,
And I think
and
that
that's
was
what we're
another kind
now.
of watershed moment is you listen to some clips of how they were, broadcasting and providing, commentary, and it was obviously so biased and just laced with propaganda. You just bought words. They were just bought.
Hmm. Yep.
And people are done, man. Like they just don't hear that and heed it anymore. They're tuning out.
Yeah.
Interesting turn. MSNBC is for sale. And so
Yeah.
far, no one's bought it.
Nobody's got now. They couldn't even get rid of CNN. Time Warner tried to sell CNN, I believe, a while back. So Elon Musk floated that he would buy them. But why would you buy those outfits there? They're done.
Yeah. Well, I
So when I
mean,
say yeah,
him buying X or, Twitter at the time, man, that was a pivotal moment too.
profound,
Like,
profound.
just could you imagine the world if he hadn't?
No.
It felt like he really put a guard. Like the other platforms, I don't think they would be doing what they're doing today if Elon Musk didn't do that acquisition and get it done, create
Yeah,
X.
I completely agree. And today we celebrate, or this week we celebrate the feast of Saint Michael and the Synaxarion of the Saints. And it's
Mhm.
interesting that we have these kind of the political X-Men. Joe Rogan, Tulsi Gabbard, Jordan Peterson, Elon Musk, JD Vance. These cohorts of people that are getting involved for the right reasons. A lot of my friends on the other side, oh, they're just power hungry, they're clout chasing. I'm like, that makes no sense in this case. It just makes no sense. They're already rich people. Like they only could, you know, um,
Yeah.
they're putting themselves at risk. They're not, clout chasing and whatnot. But anyways, I see there's a lot of yeah, a lot of positive forces that are kind of coalescing at the same time, which is a good thing. So, and I think the term "the medium is the message" is a McLuhan term,
Hmm.
which says that it's not, it doesn't, the important thing is not the content that you see in a certain medium. So it's not the particular TV show that you watch, or the particular news channel that you watch on traditional media, right? The medium is the message. The message is encoded in the way that this information gets through to you. So it's not important whether you watch CNN or Fox because you're getting a message by the medium, the traditional news media. Now we have a new medium, right? Which is this internet podcast streaming, right? So that's what broke through here and caused this avalanche, this complete landslide that we saw, and that's going to continue. And what that's going to look like, the forces of disintegration are not going to go away; they're going to coalesce. So we got to stay vigilant. I always have the Jonathan Pageau in my head talking about, we got to be mindful of the response to the woke mind virus, right? Because if the pendulum swings one way, you got to be mindful that it doesn't swing the other way.
Hmm.
Then you actually have something like fascism, which would be a response to something like that. So I don't see signposts that were moving that way, thank God.
Hmm.
That could have been the case right now. But we got to stay vigilant and stay together for sure.
Yeah, what's it been like at your work? Do you have anybody, calling in sick or protesting, or
No,
is it normal day, professional?
no, it's not normal. It's this elation is felt across the board at work
Mm,
even. It's crazy. We don't see the protests that we used to see. Trump, you would have tens of thousands, thousands, if not tens of thousands of people protesting every rally. His biggest rally ever at Madison Square Garden had less than 200 protesters. And now after the win,
mm,
we see small contrived protests on traditional media, but you can tell they're fake, you know? So there's no protesting that's happening anymore, like en mass like it used to be. So the energy of that is gone. And at work, again, I don't work with particularly conservative people or Republican people, but all of them feel this sense of relief, all of them.
mhm.
My family, people at work, the neighbors. Like I think everybody feels a sense, even people that didn't vote this way. I think, except for a few that are kind of doubling down or dug in. There's those people too.
Mhm.
But the vast majority of people, even on that side, you can tell they have a little bit more brightness in their eyes. So
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
because there's a legitimate chance that the wars will stop
Yeah.
if we can
I
afford
think
eggs and gasoline again. Like,
I think that
who wouldn't be happy about that?
the war in Ukraine and the war in Israel, I could be wrong, will poof. They will just disappear. Maybe not. Maybe things will get worse. No, I have this feeling though that it's just going to go away,
Hmm.
and you're going to have the side without the energy anymore say, "Oh, we're capitulating to Putin and we're selling Ukraine." No, that stuff's not going to work anymore because that's not what's happening. We've stopped the death, stop the killing.
Hmm.
That's what we need to do, and I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, hope I'm not wrong.
Yeah. I would say at our community level, keep in mind, I'm a couple hours driving north of the Bay Area, north of San Francisco, kind of out in the country, rural part of the state. We vote typically 50-50, and this election was no different. I would say at work, yeah, like people were pretty professional. Like, I don't think if someone were to like take a sample of our day, one of the days this week at the office versus any day previous and the rest of the year, they wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So there was just kind of like business as usual, life goes on. Like the end, like this doesn't affect our day-to-day lives significantly,
Mhm.
like we think it does sometimes. Most of the work that we do is like, can we agree on paving the roads? Okay, how? It's things like that, you know.
Yeah.
But there are a few outliers. There was a meeting where someone didn't show up, and she felt it was important to make a statement that she didn't feel safe. And it's like, okay, a lot of people that do that around here are recent transplants from the Bay Area,
Mm.
I find. So I don't know what's going on down there, but that's what it looks like up here.
Yeah. Well, good man. Good. I like kind of where we're at in this podcast. Things feel good.
Yeah, I was looking at our last conversation earlier in 2024. It was really interesting to talk about transformation and seeing
Hmm.
flips and seeing how,
Hmm.
eras can come to an end, but nested in there is the beginning of something new. Fascinating to see where we are today in
Yeah.
light of that.
It's the precursor to the renewal that we're feeling now,
Yeah.
kind of feeling, anticipating it. So very cool.
Getting back to Matthieu, so his next book is rough title is Language of Renewal.
Hmm.
Although I don't know if Matthieu's going to be listening to this, but I would really prefer swapping out the word renewal for recreation.
Hmm.
His first book was Language of Creation, but in that book, my favorite vocabulary word that he used was re-creation.
Hmm.
That word and the way that he used it in his book just opened up. They were really didn't. Yeah, it had this opening up effect of new ways of thinking about things, but it also synced together all of this information just immediately. It's like this, oh, that explains so much just right there. So if I had, just like my druthers, I would prefer that word recreation. Renewal would be fine too. But I
Yeah.
look at it and I think, what does the element of dreams come into it? Because he talks so much about dreams and how it's related to renewal. And we talk about woke culture, or now it's like, hey, we're waking up. James, like where do you see this element of dreams in all of this, what we're experiencing?
Yeah, that stuck out to me too in that talk. And dreams are we dream when we're sleeping, and sleep is a little death, right? So it makes me think of when we actually die, do we enter a sort of dream space? I think something like that happens, and we go through a certain period of time of health, of restoration and renewal. 'Cause that's what happens when you go to sleep at night. You sleep, and that's when your body restores itself and renews itself. And if you get good sleep, you wake up refreshed, right? Recreated, renewed in a sense. And I think his point was we're collectively walking into, or we have, because the world has felt, and this actually feels like a past tense thing now, has felt like we were in a dream space where things weren't making sense, where information was coming through and it was obviously not making sense, but it's still, people were looking at it like it made sense, and things just seemed very dreamy, right? So we were in a kind of collective sleep. The mass formation psychosis that happened with COVID was full effect, and so we were in a sort of dream space in a sense. So the question that he talks about in that talk is, what is the nature of the sleep that we're in? Is it going to lead to renewal or death? And who is putting us to sleep? What is the mechanism? What is the reason that we're going into this collective sleep? And then what is the outcome of that sleep? Is it death or renewal? And that's when as it kind of happened at the same time I was watching that show Chaos and on
Yeah.
Netflix about the Greek gods, and just happened to be this theme of the afterlife, right? And what happens in the afterlife is the soul goes through the water of Lethe, which is kind of this the sleepy time, the sleep water of forgetting, and then you go through the portal of renewal, and then you go on to the afterlife, whatever as after this purgatory or this procession after death. And what was happening in the show, spoiler alert, as the Greek gods, right, were semi-immortal. They weren't immortal because there's only one immortal God, right? So in order for them to stay semi-immortal, they had to extract the essence of the human soul. So they made this fake portal, this fake renewal, right? This faux renewal where people after they die, they went to the underworld and they would go through the river Lethe, and they would go through the portal, and instead of being renewed, they would turn to stone, and slowly their human essence was leaked out, was kind of sucked out, and that's what the gods would feed off of in order to stay immortal.
Mm.
So so it was really kind of crazy hearing that at that time, and understanding and feeling like we're in this sort of sleep state. What is the outcome of the state that we're in? Is it going to be a renewal or a recreation, or are we just being fed upon, by forces that we don't understand? And it's like same thing with the Matrix, right? What is in the
Mm.
Matrix? The human being it's exactly the same kind of theme, though. The human being is used, and its essence is being taken in order to power the machines.
Mm.
It's the same idea that the human being, after its death, is being used in order to extract its essence for the well-being of the gods, the immortality of the gods. So it's interesting that this theme is fractally through all of these, cultural artifacts that we come across. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And it was fun. I got a text from you. You're like, dude, there's this show Chaos. You gotta watch it. Binge it now.
yeah, yeah.
And I can see why, because yeah, man, like boy, I just crazy that Netflix, of all platforms, published this. And don't get me wrong, there's this very strong propagandistic, pornographic thing going on
Hmm.
with that show.
Hmm.
So heads up on that if people are going to go tune into it, haven't watched it before. But maybe apropos to the Greek mythology. I don't know. Um, but I looked at that, and the part that made me think of this moment now is that people were a part of that process because they're given this what turns out to be a false hope of renewal, right? They think they're going out of the underworld and being reinstated, into a better position in life
Mhm.
and the earth. And really, they're not. Their souls are taken from them. It's like the complete opposite is the worst case scenario, and it really leads to death. And so it's kind of like this right hand, left hand. It's like you think you're going to this place and promotion, which renewal can lead to a type of promotion where your old position dies and you get this newer, better position.
Mhm.
But instead, it goes the other direction, and it's no promotion at all. It's death.
Yeah, death. And then, the remains of your soul is used as resources for the immortals to
Mm.
sustain themselves. And they have to continue to do that in order to stay immortal, you know?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other subtext in that series of what actually flips the gods, right? It took a human being through a quest of unrequited love to enter the underworld, right? There's a lot there that is fruitful for contemplating. Kind of
Mm.
what led to the usurping of Zeus. What led to that with the fates. Being involved and there's a lot there. So yeah, if you watch it, I would recommend it. Don't watch it with your children,
Yeah.
or you could watch 80% of it with your children. I did with my son, and I just fast forwarded through the bad parts
Hmm.
because I want him to get the theme of it and kind of
Well,
what we're
especially
talking.
because your family, comes from that, you're Greek.
Yeah.
You got that
Oh
Greek
yeah.
side of it too.
And he's learning about the pantheon in school right now, or he has been, so he knows them all. So I was like, oh, you got to see this. And then I just had
Yeah.
to fast forward to some of the Dionysian parts, let's say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, man. James, anything else you want to cover?
No, that's it, man. It was good to connect with you.
And I'm feeling pretty full too. That's
Yeah.
I feel like we said what we had to say.
Yeah. Till next time, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Okay.
God bless, bro.
God bless.